You're not the man you could be, and you know it. There's a tension there that's been eating at you for as long as you can remember. You never had the desire for material things, not a mansion, not the fantasy of applause, but something far more meaningful than that. You wanted to be formidable, not wealthy, not famous, formidable. The kind of man who lays his head on the pillow at night and knows, I am living up to my calling. That he did not negotiate with his lower impulses. That he expended himself in pursuit of something worthy. You wanted to be driven. That's it. Driven. You never wanted to live life reactively, scrambling, defending, surviving. You wanted to move forward voluntarily, to shoulder responsibility, to aim at something high and throw everything at it, because that's what life is supposed to be. And there was a time, wasn't there, when you tasted that? Disciplined, early mornings, dialed in routine, mind sharpening, body strengthening. You were locked in. But then something happened. The flame diminished. You tried to reignite it. Another routine, another Monday, another promise. But the spark just wouldn't hold. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, you stopped attempting the comeback. Worse still, you stopped believing it was possible. That's the real catastrophe. Because when a man loses belief in his own ability for voluntary suffering in pursuit of the good, something in him begins to decay. You feel it. That aching feeling that you're burying the talents entrusted to you. And you know the parable well enough to understand the warning. You're not ignorant to the fact, and that's the torment. You know the principles, you know the textbook answers. Get your sleep right, eat well, hit the gym, delete social media, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Then why is it so difficult? I saw a post the other day, it was by Chris Williamson, and he was speaking about this idea that us as humans, we're capable of doing difficult things. No problem, actually. We're built to do difficult things. I even remember a quote from Jordan Peterson a while back about how, as humans, we are made for uphill battle, or uphill, we're meant to walk uphill. And this post that Chris Williamson had, it was talking about how doing difficult things isn't the problem. It's the complexities that come into play that make it very difficult for us. Because I mean, guys, if we're looking at the kind of things we want to be doing, right, in terms of life, it's simple. Like it really isn't like it's not too bad, right? It's not impossible, right? Like let's use the textbook example. You know, getting into shape. Getting into shape is really so simple. Eat clean, eat consistently, and gym consistently. We can get into the nitty gritties and everything, but honestly, if you keep a principle of you go to the gym, say you start 3 times a week and you end up at like 4 or 5 times a week, right? And you can do a split, you can do a lower body, upper body, whatever it is you want to do. But you are constantly pushing yourself in the gym. You're lifting heavy weights and you're constantly like improving, right? You're lifting heavier weights. You're progressively overloading, and you're eating well, right? And then you obviously, if you want to grow, you start eating more. You're counting your calories. If you want to lose weight, you start eating less. Start doing a bit more cardio. Whatever it is, that principle is very simple. Like you can get that laid down for you on a page. You can get given the routine, the meal plan, and then you just do it, right? That's it. But the difficult part comes in like doing it consistently. One, we can speak about the motivation, which is a whole other topic, right? But the other side of it is just the complexities that come into play. All of a sudden, it's not, oh, I just go to the gym and eat clean, bro. It's like, oh, but what split should I do? How long should I be going? And how does this fit into like my plan with like life and everything? How big do I want to be by this time next year? Like all these things just start coming into play. Oh, I'm not big enough, or I need to start doing this. You watch a YouTube video, you see something online, but honestly, guys, put all that aside. You put together a simple routine, you follow that, and you just did it consistently over a long period of time, we'd win, right? And I know this concept as well, even with social media as well. So it's a very simple thing again of like, cool, figure out how to make like good content or your niche or whatever it is you wanna say about it, right? YouTube is a bit more difficult, but say stuff like you like TikTok or whatever. Post consistent, like figure out what you want to do, post consistently, and just keep improving over a long period of time. That like compound effect of little things building up over time is what builds this And I thought about this as well in terms of athletes when I was thinking about this concept, because I've been thinking about it over the past couple of days. Um, I thought about athletes. I thought about people that get like, ultra successful. Obviously, we can talk about talent and all that stuff, right? But genuinely, something I've always envied about athletes, in relation to all of this, is just like they focus on one thing. Like their thing growing up was, I'm gonna go be a footballer, or I'm gonna go do this, or whatever it is. But it was the one thing. That's one thing that they got really really good at, and their lives are pretty simple. Like I'm trying to think of like someone like Kobe. You hear all the stories, right? It was literally just basketball. You can talk about all these crazy routines, whatever it is, right? But he was locked in on basketball, not basketball. I'm trying to start this business. I'm trying to do this. I'm not saying you can start businesses, but I'm saying in terms of focus, right? Like in terms of creating actual progress, how we thrive as humans is it's not we struggle with difficult things. You can do difficult things. We are very capable of doing difficult things. I mean, for me, it's the whole reason I'm having this conversation. I want to be doing difficult things, right? But it's all these other things that come into play where it's like, oh, you do something. I have this friend. I don't know if he's watching this video, but he'll do something and he'll do decent, whether it's social media or it's sales or it's his business or whatever it is. He'll do it for a couple of weeks and he'll taste some success, and then the next time we chat, he's chopped and changed, like he's doing something else again, and then he's doing something else again. And it's like obviously when you do that kind of thing, you don't get to see the fruits of your labor, and the principle really is simple. Like the fruits of our labor come from just focusing on one thing and building up on it consistently. That's how these things work. So for me, that was something I found very interesting. It's like, okay, we don't struggle to do hard things. We just struggle when there's too many complex factors we have to consider and all of these things. And our biggest aim as humans is just trying to simplify our lives. And on this thing of like, we know what we need to do. If you're anything like me, like over the last, geez, 6 to 5 years, I watched, especially when I started self-improvement, I watched a lot of this. I got deep into self-improvement, dude. I was watching like Hamza videos every day, Iman Gadzi, any like self-improvement guy I knew about it. We started learning about looks, maxing, all this stuff and whatever, right? And I watched all this, I read the books, like Atomic Habits. I remember reading 7 Habits of highly successful people. Um, like I read all this stuff. Like I was entrenched in it, and actually I made like some decent progress. I mean, I only did it for like I think the period was probably around 20. It was like 2021 to like 2023. I started falling off a bit in 2023. Then 2024 like came. I'd finished my honors year, and I moved to Johannesburg, which is where I'm at now. And this was 2 years ago, and doing articles. I started working. So obviously it's a whole different thing that comes into play. But during that period when I made like serious strides, like I remember there was this period between October 2021 all the way up until June 2021. So just for some context, in 2020, I put on so much weight. Like I was fat. I'd gotten fat. And I was like, dude, I remember the thing that got me going was I spoke with a friend I hadn't spoken to in like a year. And 2020 was like my first year of university, so we just finished my trip in 2019. So I hadn't spoken to this person since we graduated. And I remember, that feeling you get when you finish something, you're like, oh man, I'm gonna go change my life and everything. And this was a year after that, and it was COVID and stuff. But I was like, man, I do not want this to be me at some high school reunion like 10 years ago. Let me start now. Because 2021 I was 19, so I was like, dude, I'm lucky I've gotten this awakening, if you can call it that. I've gotten that now, so I can actually like do something about it. But I do not want this to be me when I'm like 30 or 40, coming back to high school reunion and getting this same feeling of like, man, when I lost all these people, I had these big plans to change my life, and look at where my life is at now. So that gave me a nice kick up the backside. And I lost the weight, and then October to June 2022, I was like, I went on a bulk basically, and I was like, I'm just gonna bulk, like I'm gonna go crazy. And I was counting my calories, I'd done like the calculations and stuff, and then I had this plan, like it was so simple. And you hear these kind of stories, right, with people that become successful. I remember hearing, like Chris Williams is another person I think about in this regard, where his podcast is blown. I think he's great. I love his podcast quality, and he said like, dude, for the last, I don't know how many years it is now, but he was like, I spent like 5, 10 years just a podcast every week. And he brought up the stat of like, if you make, what is it? If you make three podcast episodes in a row, you're already in like the top yeah, but if you make 21 podcast episodes in a row, you're in the top 1%. Just that fact alone, just by doing that, you're already in the top 1%. And he was saying, like, for me, it was simple. It was just monk mode, gym podcast. Like, I just focused on podcasts and just creating good conversation and learning how to get good at that, right? You hear these stories all the time. Like, people who made significant progress, they actually just focus on one thing for a consistent period of time, and that's where that progress comes. So for me, I'm thinking about this period. Like, that's a period, like, I put on so much muscle. I was bloated because I'm like, how tall am I? I'm like 178 centimeters. So I'm like 5'10", and I was 90. I went up from, I think, like 71 kgs to like 90 kgs over that 9-month period. And I remember I was eating a lot. Like, I was bulking, and I was consistently like increasing, getting on the scale every week. And I remember the thing that kept me going was, dude, if you've eaten a lot today, if you don't gym, that's just gonna become fat. Like, you're not gonna get any like muscle for it, right? So I had my eating routine, and then I just had to hit my calories. I tried to eat clean and stuff, but I just had to hit my calories. And I had a 6-day-a-week training routine, and I loved it, man. It was in my garage. I had these weights, like literally freehand. It wasn't freehand weights. It was like those screw-on weights you have. So I could put on weights on my and create dumbbells basically. And I'd use this for everything, like push pull legs. It was great. It was every morning I'd wake up. I think it was 4. I'd wake up at 4 every morning. There were some weeks. It wasn't majority of the weeks. It was very very few actually. Where I'd start waking up a bit later, or there's a Saturday where I'm working out at like 11 a.m. or something in the summer, and it's hot. This is Durban summer. It was hot, and but for the most part, I was consistent. Like, I didn't miss. I don't think I missed a single session in those 9 months. It was 6 days a week. It was push pull legs, push pull legs. I had my routine set out, and I just did it like consistently. I had planned to do like yoga on the Sunday, like just stretching, whatever. But that was a little bit less consistent with, because it doesn't affect my gains. But the principle is, during that 9 months, I made serious progress in the gym. Like, my transformed. Like, I put on so much muscle, and then I cut, and then started like falling off a bit or whatever. But even to this day, like, over the last year, I've really put on that like corporate, that fat you put on when you work in a stressful corporate environment. Like, I've put that on, and I want to lose. I really want to start losing the weight, which again brings us back to where we're at, where I'm like, I know what I need to do, but doing it is so difficult now. And this brings me to other point. I remember hearing Jordan Peterson say this. It was in relation to this whole topic of like, you're stuck, and you know what you need to do, but you just can't do it, right? Obviously, speaking about Chris Williamson, this quote about we can do difficult things, but it's just the complexities of everything that make things difficult. This quote from Jordan Peterson actually looks at it from a different angle, which I found very interesting. Hearing it, he said something he noticed in his conversations with his clinical patients. People are like really struggling and trying to get them to change. He was like, the reason people don't change isn't because they don't know what to do or because what they need to do is really difficult. It's actually because the step they need to take is so embarrassingly small. The bar is so embarrassingly low that they can't believe that I have to do this to change, that they don't do it. Like, it's this whole thing about clean your room and all that. That's where it comes from. It's this thing of like small changes, right? And he was saying that, like, I mean, one of the examples he used was with one of his patients. He was like, okay, his room was a mess, his whole life was a mess and everything. And he was like, okay, we're not going to start with anything crazy. What we're going to do just for today, take the Hoover and move it into your room. Like, can you do that? I was like, yeah, well, I can do that. Okay, so go do it. Then you do it. And then the next step was plug the Hoover in, right? It's like these kinds of things, they're so small, right? And then it's like, you get the concept, right? It's like you start like actually taking steps, but it's small steps that build up that momentum. And that's something for me I've been learning, because I felt so stuck. Because I fell out after I did like self-improvement quite decently, 2021, 2022, 2023, and then 2024 I just started falling off. And I'm like, I'm trying to get back, not even just get back. I want to actually transcend what I was doing before. Like, I want to be living on the purpose that God has called me to. But it's like, why is it so difficult? So I'm thinking of these two concepts. Like, one, complex, right? complexities, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, should I do this or should I do that? I've debated, this concept of, okay, if you want to change, do you just like radically just entrench yourself in, or do you do it bit by bit? I have kind of listened to quite a few podcasts and stuff, and I mean, all the habit stuff shows that it's small steps, and obviously speaks to what Jordan Peterson's speaking about here. Then the other side is, how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? And again, I've got to go back to this quote that Jordan Peterson. It's like, the bar is so low, just start there. Like, I've started using a habit tracker, and it's been great for me because psychologically what that does for you, you can look back at a month. Like, I started doing it like in December. Yeah, it was in mid-December. But the main started like Jan. And it's not been perfect. I've kind of set out the habits that I want to do. And for me, I identified the first one is just having a consistent sleep schedule. Like, I've known that for the longest time. And I remember having this conversation with a friend last year where it was like, okay, dude, like, we look at all these things and it's like trying to make these big changes because you want your life to change, like, in a meaningful way, right? And it goes back to Jordan Peterson's thing where it's like, the bar is so embarrassing. Like, you don't feel like if I move my Hoover into my room, it's going to change my room. So why should I bother doing that to begin with? But what you don't realize is that when you move the Hoover into my room today, tomorrow I plug it in, the next day I turn it on, and then the next day I just Hoover like for like 10 seconds, even if it's just for 10 seconds. And the next day I keep doing that, and like just keep building. You don't realize that within 2-3 months you're gonna have a perfectly clean room. If you want to move that slow, of course. The idea is, yeah. And let's say a month, you have your room clean within a month. But if you don't, if you're like, oh man, if I move my Hoover into my room, it's not gonna change anything. You don't do that. What you don't realize is 1 month is gonna pass, 2 months are gonna pass, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years. Time is gonna pass and nothing's gonna change because you haven't taken that first step. I remember having this conversation with him. I was like, cool, life is just a mess right now and I just can't get any grounding. What's the first thing I know I need to do? I know this. I know the studies around it, and we know it as common sense. Get a consistent sleep routine going, right? So it's been, look, I've been trying to get a consistent sleep schedule from like 2023. That's when I really stopped like waking up early and stuff. I've been trying that. It's 3 years in now, and it's like you spend all this time trying to do all these things, right? Like, okay, I want to do this. I want to wake up early, go to the gym, get in, do my devotional in the morning, do all these things, and just get this crazy routine going. And you never get started. But what we don't realize is if I just took the last month or the last 3 months to just focus on gradually building my sleep schedule, something would have changed by now. But here I am looking back 6 months, a year, 2-3 years later, and I still don't have a consistent sleep schedule. And I remember us having this conversation. It was so interesting. And for me, I've started seeing it happen for me now because in this habit track, I've kind of put, cool, I've got, let me actually, I have it like right here actually. So I've kind of got it, I don't know if you guys can see. But yeah, I've kind of split it up into like core, secondary, and like kind of like work stuff. And for me, it's like, cool, I did a whole thing at the end of last year, just a lot of introspection, like what do I want to do this year? And for me, I was like, okay, what are the most important things for me this year? It's cool, I need to finish my articles. I'm going to do the best I can to make sure that I'm giving myself enough time and just, yeah, whatever I can to finish this journey well, just finish articles. And then the other thing is also, I want to build the Vanguard, there's something I want to do with my life. And okay, so cool, what are the basics? What do I need to do? And I remember another thing, I think it was Chris Williamson chatting with Alex Omozi, and he was reading this like essay, I guess he wrote up, and he was saying that like thinking about doing the thing is not doing the thing. Reading about doing the thing is not doing the thing. Planning to do the thing is not doing the thing. Doing the thing is doing the thing, right? And it's just this concept of like do what's actually going to move the needle. And for me, I'm like, okay, cool, what's going to move the needle in terms like this year? It's like, cool, consistently make your short form content and consistently post one video a week. Like those are your things, your non-negotiables. Just keep that going. So I've got that in here, and I've kind of put together a little point system where I've just kind of said, cool, if I get a tick, like if I tick one habit, I get a point. And if I do it 3 days in a row, I get an extra point on that third day. And then if I do it 7 days in a row for a week, I get an extra point. So if I do it 7 days in a row, I'm going to get the 7 points. Okay. The first 3 days, I'm going to get 1, 2, 3 points. I'm going to get a bonus point. That's going to be 4 points. Then day 4, 5, and 6, I get 3 points, and then a bonus point again, making it 4 points. And then on the 7th day, I get a bonus point as well on that day. So in total, I get 10 points. I don't know if I explained that well enough, but anyways, I've put together this elaborate like point system, and the goal is to get to like 50 points a week. I looked at it as like a basketball match, I guess, because that's kind of the thing that approximates points. It's like if I get to 50 points, I get to watch like sports highlights on a Sunday. I haven't like implemented that yet, but again, it's just this thing of like get the ball rolling, like just go back to basics. So I've put in here cool. What are my core habits? I've got here align for sleep, doing my devotional, and training, and then my phone as well. I've also put the phone because I've pinpointed the phone as also. It's again one of those things where it's like you spend all this time like doom scrolling on your phone and it causes you all these problems. For me, I was like, okay, cool. I have these things I want to do. I want to fix my sleep schedule, and then over here I've also got read, and then diet, and then I've got my stuff like the Vanguard. I've tried to simplify it as much as possible, and I said, okay, cool. Getting like you want to do all these things, but let's break it up. What's the first thing you need to get right? It's like my sleep schedule. Cool. Let's make it basic. Okay, and I've tried this. I'm like, oh, I want to wake up at 4, and I've been at work. It's been a bit tough because we've been working a lot of like overtime and going to sleep late and stuff. But I was like, okay, let's say I want you to take 3 months. You have 3 months to get to a place where you're waking up consistently at 4 a.m. Because I want to wake up at 4 a.m. do my devotional, go and like do like a proper like hectic, like workout session. Like going and doing like basketball. And I think I found this place that I could play in the morning. I was like, cool. I want to get to a point where I'm going there and I'm doing like intense sessions for like an hour, right? But it's like, okay, for now, let's just start. Sleep. You have 3 months to just fix your sleep schedule. January, I just want you to wake up at 6 a.m. every day. If you wake up at 6 a.m., you get a tick. Okay, you get the point. And then Feb, 5 a.m. And then March, 4 a.m. And it's not been perfect, but I've started. I mean, I'm looking here. You're also supposed to kind of like highlight streaks and stuff, and it's so interesting to look back and be like, oh wow, January actually was a good month, and I can feel like, man, I wasn't as consistent as I wanted to be or whatever, but you can look back and say all of that, and it really helps progress because the way the human brain works, we work on progress, feeling like we're making progress. Then the other thing I've got on here is my devotional as well. So it's obviously tied in again. It's like, don't do anything crazy. You don't just sit and read the Bible for like an hour. Get this devotional time, sit for like 10 minutes. Okay, so now my sleep schedule has literally been, okay, wake up. In Jan was wake up at 6. Now I'm waking up at 5. It's like wake up at 5, brush your teeth, like get ready, all this stuff. Spend 10 minutes doing a devotional. And then, again, my training, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm like, okay, just go for a walk. You can go for a 15-minute walk. Can you do that? And yeah, I've been doing that. And I've actually been very consistent with that. And it's like now I'm feeling this momentum building. And I've also like with reading as well. I really want to get into like a lot of reading, but again, I'm not like sitting down and reading isn't the greatest. Like I struggle with that. But I can get through an audiobook. So I was like, cool. I've been listening to a lot of C.S. Lewis. I just downloaded audiobooks that I just like find interesting, and I'm like, just listen for 15 minutes when you're driving to work every morning. Saturdays and Sundays is where it's a bit weird because I'm not driving to work. You have to find just some time to just listen. But it's like just listen for 15 minutes and you get the tick. I've been very consistent with that, and it's like now all of a sudden that's happening. Like you're building some kind of momentum, and then as time passes, something greater builds. That's something I found to actually kind of be working for me. But yeah, I just find this whole topic so interesting because we know like the first principles. We know the things we're supposed to do, and then struggle to get them done because, as Jordan Peterson puts it, the bar is so embarrassingly low. We don't find it worth our time to actually do it, but it is when you look at it in the grand scheme of things. And if you look at the way habits work, like it really works that way. It's just building bit by bit by bit. And this is where it's very important, to bring in the biblical principle of humility. Are we humble enough to actually say, look, this is where I'm at in life. I know where I want to be, and I know what I'm capable of. But right now, I'm not the man I could be at all. I am the guy who needs to get the Hoover and just bring it into my room for today. And there's so much power in that humility. I'm actually going to pick up a verse right now about humility that kind of speaks to that. But that's the concept, right? Is we've got to be humble enough to just take that first step, to just do that. Because those little steps compound so fast. And we are just too proud, I guess, to do those little things and start building them consistently. But that's what we need to aim at. That's what I think anyways, going back to basics. But yeah, you guys let me know what you think of this whole conversation. I'd love to get you guys' thoughts down below. It's an ongoing conversation, of course. And yeah, make sure you also hit the subscribe button